Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and for today's video we're going to be talking about the rumored Metroid Prime 2 Echoes remaster, or port. We don't quite know what it's going to be, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today, speculating on if it makes more sense for it to be an enhanced remaster, like the Prime 1 remastered we got at the beginning of this year, or if it's going to be more of a straight-up port, maybe bundled with Prime 3, or something entirely separate that's potentially shall drop in the upcoming, rumored, speculated Nintendo Direct this September. Now before we go forward, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. With your help, it can happen. And here's just a quick reminder that I am on vacation right now, so a lot of the videos coming out will be more of a simpler editing style, so just sit back, relax, and hear me out. So when it comes to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, this is a game that a lot of us have been kind of hoping would be coming ever since Prime 1 Remastered was confirmed, and it was shall drop this February. It was released the same day it was announced, and Prime 1 Remastered was rumored for quite some time. But before we got confirmation of it, it was also said by Jeff Grubb that Prime 2 and 3 should come at some point down the road as well, but Prime 1 was always the one that was suggested to be the big boy remaster, and that 2 and 3 would not be getting as much work. And so as a result, a lot of us have been thinking that maybe when Prime 2 comes around, 3 would also come alongside of it, kind of like a bundle deal, maybe something like what we've seen with Pikmin 1 and 2 recently in the past Nintendo Direct when they had those come out and shall drop them, other GameCube remasters or enhanced ports to ride the Pikmin hype leading into Pikmin 4. So conceivably, maybe that's what's going to happen in this upcoming Nintendo Direct. But what I find interesting is that when we go back to when Jeff Grubb initially said this, and by the way, I've already reported this before, so I'm not going to be focusing specifically on the details, but there'll be a video on the end screen if you're more interested in the initial story. But the point is, Jeff Grubb talked about Prime 2 coming out on its own, as a remaster. And the expectation still is that it won't be as enhanced as Prime 1, but it almost seems like that maybe this could be something that is worthwhile on its own. Because it isn't being brought up as something to release with Prime 3, but its own thing. So it raises the question, is Metroid Prime 2 going to have that remastered moniker, that logo, or is it just going to be Metroid Prime 2 Echoes? The same way they handled Pikmin 1 and 2, where it's the GameCube game, maybe they go in and make sure that you can very clearly read all the text and everything is clean, basically just through a nice HD upscale and nothing more, and they just make sure it has the right controls? Or are they going to be actually going into this and putting in some work to make it look better than just a basic upscale? Obviously, the jury's still out, but Prime 3 not being included in this rumor does give me some room for optimism here. It makes me feel like this could stand on its own. Now, I'm not expecting it to be as expensive as Prime Remastered if it's not going to have the same level of improvements, unless they're enhancing things in other ways. So what I'm getting at here is that Prime 2 Echoes has multiplayer. Are they just going to allow local multiplayer, or could they go back and introduce some level of online play? That would be a significant enhancement that might not even require that much work, but if you couple that alongside some fairly decent visual enhancements, maybe some texture reworking here, a new enhanced lighting engine, but not going back and redoing every single asset, the game may still hold it pretty darn well, and it will have an online multiplayer that will give people even more reason to check out Prime 2 Echoes. And at that point, if that's what they do, I could see it being at the same price as Prime 1, because they have that multiplayer there, and if it's online, that will go a long ways towards helping it to feel pretty valuable. And I'm actually paying close attention to this possibility, because even if Metroid Prime 4 doesn't show up in the next Nintendo Direct in any way, shape, or form, Prime 2 simply being announced shows that they are sort of setting things up for Prime 3 to come fairly soon, with the implication that Prime 4 is at the end of this road. But also, if they do go back and do some work with the multiplayer, I think that bodes well for the thinking that Prime 4 could also have multiplayer. Now, I know a lot of Metroid fans don't necessarily want to see multiplayer because in the past it hasn't always been amazing, and on top of that, multiplayer can conceivably take away from the single player campaign. But my belief is that Nintendo's putting a lot of work into Metroid Prime 4. They've been developing this for years, they've been very hush-hush, they've been hiring a lot of AAA talent for a long time, a lot of which are developers that work on shooting games that are multiplayer online. I do think that there's a very good chance that Prime 4 could have multiplayer, especially if this facilitates better sales long term. But only because they'll have such a nice budget and team and resources that they can make sure that single player campaign is a single player campaign we would expect from any high quality Metroid Prime game, potentially maybe even the best yet. And then also a multiplayer. I think there is a chance of that, but obviously we don't know until it's confirmed. But depending on how they handle Prime 2, I think that could give me more reason to believe in this idea. But what I've considered so far is the optimistic perspective, that Prime 2 could have some decent solid visual enhancements, have an online multiplayer, maybe this bodes well for Prime 4 also having multiplayer. Like, those are interesting, exciting things. But there's the other possibility that Prime 2 simply comes out on its own, and it's just a basic upscale, and they just make sure that you have the different control options we saw in Prime 1 Remastered. I'm not even necessarily against this, I wouldn't be super in love with it, but depending on the pricing, this might be okay. An HD upscale would still help Prime 2 look pretty solid. It would look better than, I would say, the Pikmin 1 and 2 on Switch, which, you know, for today's standards definitely don't look really good. It's clearly a GameCube game. I mean, me being totally honest, what I want the most is for Prime 2 to have the exact same treatment as Prime 1. For it to look that good, that would just be insane. Considering that Prime 1 came out just this February, so to get another visual enhancement like that so soon after, it would be a special thing, and maybe that's probably too lofty of an expectation. But I suppose we should also entertain the angle that maybe when Jeff Grubb says Prime 2 could be coming this direct, that does also open the door for Prime 3 coming as well. Would I find it odd that we get Prime 2 and 3 after we just talked about 2? Yes, but of course with these rumors you gotta take them with a grain of salt. Some things are lost in translation, some things are left for interpretation, sometimes plans change, there's leak bait out there, there's a number of different factors that can lead to the information we get not being entirely true, or just being somewhat suggestive of what's to come. And getting Prime 2 and 3 at the same time would be very interesting because, well, that would be both games. But if we're getting 2 games, how would they be priced? I would kind of envision them to be priced similarly to Pikmin 1 and 2. You can get them separately, but together you can get them as a discount. Maybe they even bring in some sort of discount deal with Prime 1 Remastered so they can give that game another opportunity to sell as well. This is possible, but if they do a thing like this where they showcase 2 and 3 at the same time, I do think it would be because they're finally doing the Prime 4 blowout. If they just give us Prime 2, they might tease us, but not necessarily. And right now the rumor is just Prime 2 coming in the not so distant future. It hasn't been confirmed or clarified that it's coming in the direct. That's just kind of something that we're making that mental leap to think. Prime 2 coming soon, Prime 1 was shadow dropped, there's a direct probably coming in September, given the history of there basically being directs in every single September, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how this pans out. If I'm gonna guess, I'll put out a guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think what's going to happen is that Prime 2 is going to come out on its own, Prime 3 will not release during this direct, but it will have some noticeable visual enhancements. Not as much as Prime 1, but it will look better, and they will do something to the multiplayer. Maybe I'm asking too much for it to be online, but I have some optimism that they could do something with that, and it'll be priced about the same, and I think they'll make mention of Prime 4 finally. A tease, a subtle tease. Of course, maybe that's just my Metroid fanboy hype and optimism kicking in. Regardless, I think something related to Prime 2 is happening in the direct. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.